Hey guys, my name is Tony Collier, and this is my husband,
Sam.
We're getting ready to hop into our next session, and it's all about carrying out kindness. We've learned a lot so far, but now we're going to really learn how to do.
Carry it out.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, you will. Yes, essentially, we've talked about how to withhold negativity and practice praise and give it out. But how do you do things differently? Like, what little actions of service, what actions of generosity are really going to matter?
Well, it is time to jump into some more action as we hop into session 4.
Hi again, everyone. If you are doing the 30-Day Kindness Challenge with your group and doing one session each week, you just finished the second week of the challenge. In our research, this point was a key threshold where everything became so much easier, so much more natural, and by which participants had often seen some really good feedback and encouragement in their relationship. I hope you've seen that, and we'll share those specifics with your group. I also hope you've been tracking in a notebook or journal what you've been doing that works best, so you can not only remember it yourself, but also help others. All of that is a great way to learn to build a competence at kindness and to help each other. And if you haven't yet seen real impact in your relationship from your efforts, keep going. Know that the effort will be worth it. In this session, we're going to talk briefly about the third element of kindness, which is small actions of generosity, actually doing something for your spouse. Now, let's talk for a minute about how this 30-Day Kindness Challenge for your spouse fits in with the broader need for kindness in our culture. We all wish the culture was more kind and less harsh, right? And it's possible that you've participated in, for example, efforts to do random acts of kindness each day. You looked for chances to tell the frazzled administrator at your kid's school, thanks so much for what you do. Or you may have quietly given the cashier in the grocery store an extra $30 for food for the single mom and her kids in line behind you. What we found in this research project is that random acts of kindness are good and important, but they won't necessarily lead to cultural change, to a culture of kindness. Partly because you can give the cashier $30, but then if you walk out on your cell phone complaining about how slow that grocery store is, you'll still be dissatisfied. You'll still be adding to a culture of unkindness without realizing it. But if you make an effort towards not random acts of kindness, but specific acts of kindness towards one person as part of an effort to hold back negativity and unleash praise, you'll find that things do change. Not just in the relationship, but in you. Because kindness is not complete without action. It reminds me of what James told the believers who are scattered throughout all these unbelieving nations. He said, "Can't you see that faith without good deeds is useless?" And as an example, he said that Abraham's faith and his actions worked together. His actions made his faith complete. What we found in the research is that once your heart is changed by that interaction with that one person, in this case, your spouse, once you become a kinder person, then you start spreading kindness very effectively to others around you. And as multiple people do that, our culture will change. It really is an amazing process. But here I need to be sure to issue a caution about two traps we've seen repeatedly in the research. I've mentioned both of them before, but they're worth repeating, especially for those of you who have finished the first 2 weeks of the 30-Day Kindness Challenge. First, for those of you who may not yet have seen the positive responses you're looking for, remember, don't let your efforts depend on the response you get. For some of you, you've been doing these acts of generosity, you've been affirming and positive, and maybe you haven't seen the sort of effort or response you would have liked from your spouse. Remember, this process will only work properly if it is an effort towards unconditional kindness in yourself, regardless of whether the other person reciprocates or even notices. You may find it interesting to know that in our study group of more than 700 people, the vast majority of married people were doing the kindness challenge without their spouse even knowing. Even when it was entirely one-sided like that, 89% of those relationships improved too.
We've talked about kindness in so many different ways, but the specific ways that we've talked about is through your words, how we can verbalize kindness, how you can be more kind in your heart. But now we're going to be talking about kindness in action. So actually doing kind things for your spouse. And Shanti says that there are 8 different types of kindness. And so I'm going to quickly run through this list, and then you guys will tell me what type of kindness is easier for you or is the easiest for you. And okay, here are the 8. Perform small acts of kindness, give or share something precious to you, don't respond in kind, give sex, okay, I'm just goofy. Focus attention on the other person, be personable, be fully present and enter their world, assume the best, and tell the other person what you need. So John, which is the easiest for you?
Performing small acts of kindness,
Yeah,
definitely.
I thought about that. Why do you think
Yeah.
that's yours?
It's just what I do. It's part of who I am.
Yeah.
It's what I saw my father do for my mother.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's really great. Jennifer?
I think mine's the last one, like telling them exactly what you need. Because I think I'm very much straightforward. I don't want to have you guessing. You know, like, I'm not going to wait for you to figure it out. I'm going to help you. I'm going to tell you. And I think in that it's just clear. I'm not trying to play games. I'm not trying to be like if I'm holding something and it's heavy for me, I could be like, yeah, I could try. I could be like, hey, I need your help.
Yeah.
You know? And we're all happy.
And we're all I love that one. Bringing it to you guys, what are the easiest ways for you to show kindness?
I think it's being fully present, like giving my full attention. Actually, it's what he was talking about a minute ago. I thought, oh, yay. Just to, when he's got something that's really important to him, just shut up and listen to him.
For me, it's small acts of kindness. I think I like, go to the store and you see a particular candy bar she likes, get something like that. It's also not just the little acts like that, but I like to do them when she doesn't know I'm going to do it.
Ooh.
Like, for instance, if she's out of town for any length of time, or even if it's just for a day, I will usually plan something. I like the fact that I can go out and eat what I want to eat. I can watch what I want on TV, and I like all the freedom of being all myself and batching it. I like that part. But I also like to plan something in there where I just do something that she either doesn't expect or has been talking about doing.
Household DIY, he will do it, and it is the best.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. What's yours?
Mine is to be fully present. So my love language is quality time. And so I just want to be like face to face, no phones, no, like nothing. I just want to look you in the eye.
That is easy for her. This is a question for the entire group.
Okay.
Have you found that giving your full expectations, telling your spouse what you need, have you found that to be beneficial for the relationship?
Yeah, right?
Talk to us about that.
Because, I'm just watching you two, and I can tell that you guys really shoot straight, and it's nice.
One thing I've noticed about marriage, and the biggest difference from being a single man to a married man, is that like when I perform acts of kindness and do things like that to my wife, I feel like that it also is a way of glorifying God, because it's fulfilling the covenant that he's placed in my life, because this is the woman that he provided for me. This is a life partner that he's provided for me. So I need to steward this to the best of my ability at all times.
So, you are probably experts at the different types of kindness by now, but let's just review a few. In Chapter 8, we catalog 8 completely different ways of being kind that go beyond what we tend to think of as acts of kindness, like bringing your wife a hot cup of coffee on a cold evening, or sending your husband a sweet text on the day when you know he has a hard meeting at work. There's many different ways of being generous, and some of them may matter so much more to your spouse, and some of them may come more naturally to you. It's, of course, important to stretch ourselves because it matters to them, but I think it makes a difference when we play to our strengths too. After all, God wired us in those ways for a reason. So let's review a few of the 8 different types of kindness actions. One type of generosity is to focus your attention fully on your spouse with no distraction, and to welcome the time with them when they approach you to talk or ask a question. Think about how that will feel to your spouse. For example, have you ever had a boss that stopped whatever they were doing when you walked into their office to ask a question? How did that feel compared to the boss who continued to type and hardly looked up as you were talking? That undivided attention really makes you feel special, right? Well, the problem is we are around our spouse so much that we take them for granted, and we rarely really focus on them in that way that we used to. Now, you may, in fact, be in the middle of something when your spouse wants some of your time. In other words, they may actually be an interruption. but kindness refuses to make them feel like one. In your discussion time, this is a good thing to discuss and think about. How do you do this when you do have other things that you need to attend to, but want to be kind at the same time? I know you have some wisdom to share with each other on that one. Another type of generous action is to assume the best of your spouse's intentions towards you. This assumption is important in many close relationships, but is especially vital for marriage. In fact, in our research study on the surprising secrets of highly happy marriages, we found that believing the best in that way was actually a prerequisite for a happy marriage. It's almost impossible to have a great marriage without it. Because especially if we've had a contentious relationship and we're hurt, it's easy to assume that the person knew what they were doing when they said this or did that. We're subconsciously assuming that they were intending to hurt us or take advantage of us or going behind our backs on purpose. And yet, in nearly all the cases, that assumption of bad intentions is simply not the case. Regardless, it is an act of generosity to be willing to look for a more generous explanation and respond as if that is the correct one. Now, you may bristle a bit at that and think it gives someone license to sort of walk all over you. But remember, the game-changing common denominator that we shared from all our studies, whether you thrive will be far more related to how you treat your spouse than caring about how they treat you. And as we mentioned before, if you're in a situation where certain boundaries are clearly needed, there is more in the kindness challenge about that. But in the vast majority of marriages, regardless, you'll find it softens and improves the entire relationship if you're willing to believe the best of your spouse's intentions towards you.
One of the things that Shanti listed on the acts of kindness list, we joked about it earlier, but it was sex. How do you feel about that being an act of kindness? How important is sex in a relationship?
I think it's very important. I don't take sex, I don't take it very lightly. I think it's a wonderful gift that God has given us, and it's fun.
I think so much of what you said is what plays out, especially over time, is that it is an extremely personal thing, but it is a spiritual thing. It really is all about how much you two are connected to each other. It is sometimes giving up what you have in mind in the moment, and instead just really giving to the other person. It's
that was such a great way to put that. Sometimes it's giving up what you had in mind.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. There is compromise there. There really is. But everything that brought you two together is what brings you together when you go to bed.
Yeah.
So,
Paul, we got it. I got it.
How different it is from the very first time that you just get better at it.
Now, finally, let's address a third type of kindness, which is kindness in the bedroom. Listen, I know this is one of those awkward topics to talk about, but Jeff and I found in our research for our other books that all of us tend to have some misunderstandings that are getting in the way. And yet, having a good connection with each other in our intimate life is one of the key game changers for a marriage. The key for our purposes here is to consider if you're married to someone with a higher libido than you, who would love to have more of that connection. If so, it is truly an act of kindness to make that more of a priority and to understand some of the emotional and physiological factors that might be getting in the way without ever realizing it. We don't have time to get into those here, but in our books for women only and for men only, you can see a little bit more about that. So, in all these areas, ask yourself, which types of generosity come most naturally to you, and which matters most to your spouse? Once you know your strengths in kindness on the one hand and what matters to your husband or wife on the other, you can build up those habits and create a great foundation in your marriage where your spouse knows how much you care about them.
Well, guys, I want to wrap this thing up with one last question. So we're in this topic of carrying out kindness and what that looks like, but sometimes we do know we can become selfish, and it gets hard for us to carry out acts of kindness for our spouse when things just stand in the way. Talk about like how difficult that is for you.
I think I generally thought of myself as a very independent person. Along with growing up in a single parent home, it was very much like, okay, just take care of myself. Me taking care of myself is helping my mom out because she doesn't have to deal with me. But then when it comes to marriage, like you can't really just be on your own road and be like, I'm good, so you're welcome. You know, it's very much like, hey, it's a partnership.
Yeah.
So remembering that is also remembering like what makes him happy. Like how does he receive love? I have to make effort to make those actions that makes him feel validated and also validates what he's said to me about how he receives love. So it is a struggle just because I feel like I've been I've been single a lot longer than I've been married. But to be able to make my marriage years longer than my single years, like that's the effort that I need to make.
I get like really trapped sometimes thinking that this life is all about me, you know? And I get real selfish. I have to check myself and just to really see like ways that I can fit in kindness in our relationship. And that's what's most important.